So welcome back to your Accounting Mentor, a segment on our podcast where we discuss the summary of the key issues discussed during our live lectures. The purpose of this is to give you the blueprint of the syllabus coverage and how the journey is built up towards the examination. If there are any questions you have, you put them in the comment section or the chat box. On this episode, we are looking at taxation, the session 1 of taxation, what we discussed. And this is both principles of taxation and advanced taxation. Now, taxation is an interesting paper. It's one of the papers that is quite easy to pass once you understand the principles and the concept. So let's go into the various things that we discussed in the session 1 taxation class. So we open up the discussion with the examiner's view, that is learning from past mistakes. So what are some of the concerns that the chief examiner has raised in respect of why some students fail the principles of taxation examination and by extension advanced taxation examination? The first one is selective learning. The fact that some people pick and choose topics, but the syllabus is designed in such a way that questions are going to be coming from each aspect of the syllabus. So sometimes people ignore topics like VAT, value-added tax, administration, a significant portion of the syllabus, whether you're in principles of tax or advanced taxation. Sometimes fiscal policy, people don't look at it, although it is in the syllabus, principles of tax, advanced taxation, and some other minor issues. Sometimes people ignore them. But you must understand that as far as it is in the syllabus, the examiner is going to be bringing something about it in the exam hall, because the examiner always aims at covering upwards of 95% of the syllabus in each examination date, which then means that you are definitely going to be having questions from each of the segments of the syllabus to optimize your chances of passing the examination. 2 will be VAT and partnership weaknesses. And the chief examiner has made some comments in the past indicating that although these areas are fundamental areas and every examination that you see something there, students almost always struggle with value-added tax and sometimes partnership. And the value-added tax, both the written part and the calculation part. So if you are doing taxation, you must make sure that you understand these areas very well. And then weak knowledge of the law and principles. As I mentioned, principles of taxation, we are largely going to be focusing on the Income Tax Act 2015, Act 896 as amended, the VAT Act, and various other acts. So it's about laws, it's about principles, and the law is the law is the law. So if you don't pay attention, you don't remember the principles, the styling, its application to specific scenarios, then you're going to have a big problem. So these are some of the things that we spoke about. Then we began our discussion on fiscal policy. We're discussing what fiscal policy is, generally how government uses spending and taxation to achieve some economic goals like full employment, economic growth, stable inflation, and aggregate demand. But most importantly was the issue in respect of what expansionary fiscal policy is and contractionary fiscal policies are. So for instance, an expansion fiscal policy is simply where government comes and say, hey, listen, there is low economic growth, there is high unemployment in the country, so what do? Governments can increase spending or reduce taxes or do both in some cases to stimulate the economy at the end of the day. With contractionary fiscal policies, here there is persistent increase in inflation and it is perceived that the economy is overheating. In other words, there is too much money in circulation. We are growing too much. So here the government can decide to reduce its spending or increase tax, because when the government reduces spending, less money in circulation. If taxes are introduced, people have less amount of money to go demand, so we can bring inflation back and the economy back to where it was. But then we came to the area that is going to really change everything, and that is the concept of who pays tax in Ghana. And so we came to the concept of residence, and we said that for tax purposes, we don't care about your citizenship like that. We are interested in your residency. And so if a person is a resident of Ghana for tax purposes, then the person will pay tax on their global income. But if the person is a non-resident for tax purposes in Ghana, then the person will pay tax on the income that they earned within Ghana or in Ghana. And we discussed the various issues about what determines who a resident is. You have a permanent home and you are in Ghana. Boom, you are a resident. Okay, you've been outside of Ghana, but not continuously for 365 days, but you have a permanent home in Ghana. Boom, you are a resident. Government official posted on a foreign mission, and you are there forever, and you are there as long as whatever it is, you are still a resident of Ghana for tax purposes. Or you are not a citizen of Ghana, but you've been in Ghana for more than 183 days. Boom, you become a resident of Ghana. And for companies, partnership, trust, they must be registered in Ghana, or their management occurred partly within the year in Ghana. So then they become residents of Ghana. So we discussed all of these in much detail. Then we emphasize the fact that there are sometimes it is difficult to determine the residency status of individuals for tax purposes. In other words, the individual can have dual citizenship, or the individual can be a citizen of one country, but also for tax purposes has become or may become a resident of another country. And so in that case, which of the two countries will take the lion's share of the tax? Because we cannot say that, oh, he has worked in the other country, so let's tax him. And the person is also a resident of Ghana, so let's tax on the global income. So if there is a difficulty between the two authorities, that is Ghana Revenue Authority, and then if you are dealing with the UK, HMRC, His Royal Majesty Revenue and Customs, how do they come to alignment to decide how to tax an individual whose residency for tax purposes cannot be directly determined? And that is where the tiebreaker rule comes in. So the tiebreaker rule provides us with 4 tests that we can make to determine the residency status of somebody for tax purposes. And we discussed how that is also going to be. Then we mentioned the concept of tax evasion and tax avoidance, because sometimes one of the reasons why there is double tax arrangement and there is this tiebreaker rule is because we want to prevent tax evasion. Now, tax evasion, tax avoidance, they are all ways of reducing your tax liability. But one is illegal, the other is legal. Tax evasion is using illegal means to reduce your tax burdens. Tax avoidance is leveraging the incentives, the loopholes in the tax laws to reduce your tax liabilities legitimately or legally. In other words, tax evasion is illegal, so you can be punished. You can go to jail for that. Tax avoidance, it's okay. You can do it and you will be good. So in a simple language, if you are keeping 2 separate books, one for the shareholders, another one for the tax authority, that's a classical example of tax evasion. You are overstating your expenses, understating your revenue, or omitting your revenue. That's a classical example of tax evasion. But if you are leveraging the incentives available in the tax code and using them to reduce your chargeable income, then that will be tax avoidance at the end of the day. Then we came to what it's required to make a tax system good. So we borrowed the principles from Adam Smith, the 4 key principles of a sound tax system. The principle of equity. All right? The tax system must be fair and progressive to the taxpayer's income. So the more you earn, the more you pay. Equity. Then certainty. It means that taxpayers must have some level of certainty on how much their tax will be when they are undertaking a certain transaction. So if I receive a gift, okay, I'm supposed to pay tax of 25% on that gift. All right. If I sell a property and I get some gains on that transaction, then I'm supposed to pay capital gain tax of 25% of that. That is certainty. Convenience simply means that both the tax collection and the tax payment should not become a headache at the end of the day. It means we should be convenient. I should be able to just jump on and pay my taxes. The tax administrators, GRA, should also easily be able to administer the tax laws. Then economy. Economy simply means that GRA or the tax authority should not spend more than the amount of tax they are going to generate. Who does that? How do you spend 100,000? How do you spend 1,000 cedis and chase after people only for you to collect a tax of 200 Ghana cedis. I mean, you don't do that, right? Because if you do that, you've just lost 800. So there has to be just a small cost in proportion to how much tax revenue that the authority can take when it comes to tax administration. And these are the 4 principles that we must understand. Then we wrapped up the discussion on determining tax liability, the concept of tax assessment. So tax assessment is simply the determination of the tax payable by a taxpayer. And there are 2 approaches or methods that we can use. We have the self-assessment and then the provisional assessment. Self-assessment is where the taxpayer prepares their own assessment, sends it to GRA. But as we mentioned, GRA has a right to require an audit of the assessment, and there is that 90% threshold that we discussed in class. Provisional assessment is where you will be in your office, so GRA is going to be doing the assessment and send it to you. But we also mentioned that when we receive the provisional assessment, the taxpayer has a right to object. However, objection can only be entertained based on certain conditions or under certain conditions. Number 1, the taxpayer must not have any liability outstanding. Number 2, if the assessment relates to domestic tax revenue division, then at least 30% of the tax liability based on the provisional assessment must be made. But if the assessment is done by the customs division, then all the amount of liability based on the provisional assessment must be paid before GRA will entertain any objection. And so during the live lectures, we solved 2 different questions, one under the self-assessment, how it works, and then the other under the provisional assessment also, how it works. So these were the issues that we discussed in the session 1 taxation class. As you can see, we're setting the tone up for key issues, fiscal policy, everything done there. Issues about residency, everything done there, because that is crucial to set us up going into the future. Then tax administration, looking at tax assessments. Again, please be mindful of the principles, because the rules are the rules. So you must understand the principles. Then when you see a question, all you are going to be doing is to apply the principles to the question. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section or the chat for me. So if you find this video valuable and you have learned something, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel and follow our pages online everywhere. But most importantly, if you want to get access to our full courses to study directly under my mentorship for the examination, then you can head on to our website, NhyiraPremium.com, to enroll in our courses, or you can send us a message on WhatsApp or call 050-114-9296 so that you can complete your enrollment and start studying under my mentorship to join our community, so I can hold your hand, provide you with the blueprint that you need so you can go to the exam hall, write the exam with confidence, and most importantly, pass the examination. Thank you, and you can check the page for more videos, and I'll catch you on the next one.